By morning, 30 cars had a problem Denise created. I came home before sunrise and my $60,000 private road was gone, buried under fresh black asphalt and HOA. It said, "Residents only." Denise Whitcomb stood there with a clipboard, smiling like she had done me a favor, then handed me a bill. I didn't raise my voice. I opened my folder. And if you like stories where quiet folks stand on truth, subscribe and stay with me till the end. The first thing I noticed was the sound. My tires should have been crunching over gravel, that old familiar grind of rock and dust under a loaded pickup. Instead, they rolled smooth and quiet over fresh black asphalt, so silent it made the hair on my arms rise. I hit the brakes before sunrise, coffee cold in the cup holder, work boots still caked with mud from 3 days repairing a ranch dam west of Montrose. The headlights washed over a road I almost didn't recognize. My road. 400 feet of private access my father cut through this land in 1991 with a rented grader, 2 stubborn mules, and more pride than money. Now it was buried. Fresh asphalt stretched from the county highway all the way to my wooden gate, black and shiny under the pale blue edge of morning. Yellow speed bumps had been bolted across it like scars. White arrows pointed toward the back loop of sagebrush pines. 3 metal signs stood along the shoulder, clean and new, each one carrying the same words. Sagebrush Pines Access, Residents Only. I sat there with both hands on the wheel and felt something colder than anger settle in my chest. They had not just used my road. They had renamed it. A white SUV waited near the gate with its engine running. Denise Whitcomb stood beside it in a cream jacket and boots too clean for ranch dirt, clipboard tucked against her ribs like a badge. Even in the dim light, I could see the smile on her face. Tight, polished, waiting. I stepped out of my truck. The smell hit me first. Hot tar, petroleum, fresh paint. That thick chemical stink that clung to the back of your throat and told you money had been spent without asking the man who owned the ground. Denise lifted one hand like we were meeting at a ribbon cutting. "Good morning, Mr. Mercer," she said. "I'm glad you're back. We need to settle your contribution." She peeled a paper from her clipboard and held it out. I didn't take it. She pushed it closer. Across the top, in bold letters, it read, "Sagebrush Pines Road Improvement Assessment." Below that, my name, Caleb Mercer. Amount due, $9,800. For a second, all I could hear was the low ticking of my truck engine cooling behind me. "You billed me," I said. "We improved your access," Denise replied. "Sweet as syrup left too long in the sun. That old gravel strip was an eyesore. Dust, potholes, poor drainage. Frankly, it was hurting property values." I looked past her at the yellow speed bumps, at the white lines, at the HOA signs planted where my father's fence posts used to stand. "This is private land." Her smile didn't move. "It has functioned as shared community infrastructure for years. Our residents rely on it. The board voted to bring it up to standard." "The board voted on my road?" "The board voted on community safety," she said. "You should thank us. Most people would be grateful." I finally took the invoice from her hand. The paper was warm from her fingers. Her nails were pale pink, perfect, tapping once against the clipboard, like she was already impatient with my silence. My father used to say, "A man's land tells you who respects him." Fence cut? Gate left open? Tire tracks across pasture? Those were not accidents. They were tests. This was more than a test. This was a claim. I folded the invoice once and slid it into the front pocket of my jacket. Denise watched that like it meant payment. "You have 10 days, she said. "After that, late fees begin. If you refuse, we'll pursue collection through the association's enforcement process." I almost laughed, but nothing about the road looked funny. Behind the HOA signs, the land dropped toward my lower pasture, where cottonwoods followed the irrigation ditch and the old dam road ran west toward the reservoir. My family had kept this place through drought, debt, and my mother's funeral. My father built this road so feed trucks could reach the ranch in winter and fire crews could reach the ridge in summer. He recorded every permit, paid every inspection fee, filed every survey. Denise Whitcomb had covered all of that with asphalt while I was gone 3 days. A porch light flicked on across the subdivision fence, then another. Shapes moved behind curtains. People were watching. Denise wanted that. She liked an audience. "This doesn't have to get hostile," she said, raising her voice just enough to carry. "If you cooperate, Sagebrush Pines is willing to consider you a participating neighbor." I looked at her then. Really looked. The clean SUV, the clipboard, the new signs, the invoice with my name printed like she had any right to put it there. She was not nervous. She was not guessing. She had planned this moment and expected me to either rage or fold. I did neither. I walked to the nearest sign, gripped the post, and tested it with one hand. Set deep. Concrete around the base. They had come prepared. Denise stepped forward. "I wouldn't touch that. It's HOA property." That was the first time my anger showed. Not in my voice, not in my hands. Just in the way the morning went very still around me. I turned back to her slowly. "Denise," I said, quiet enough that she had to stop smiling to hear it. "You just paved over private land." Her expression hardened, but only for a blink. Then she tapped her clipboard again. "We'll see what the documents say." I looked down at the black road beneath my boots, still holding the heat of the machines that had stolen its shape overnight. "Yes," I said, "we will." Denise's eyes narrowed at that, but she recovered fast. People like her always do when they think paper is just decoration. She tucked her invoice back under the clip, adjusted the collar of her cream jacket, and pointed toward the new white arrows painted down the center of my road. "This access has served Sagebrush Pines residents for years," she said. "That makes it shared community infrastructure." "No," I said. "That makes it a shortcut people used because I didn't put a gate across it." Her mouth tightened. Behind her, porch lights kept coming on beyond the subdivision fence. Sagebrush Pines sat on the old cattle tract east of my land, 60 houses pressed against the foothills where sagebrush used to roll unbroken to the highway. Most of those people had never known this road before their builders started using it to shave 6 minutes off delivery routes. Denise lifted her chin. "Usage establishes interest. Usage establishes tire tracks. That's not how our attorney sees it. Then your attorney needs to read the county records." I walked back to my truck, opened the passenger door, and pulled out the old brown folder I kept behind the seat. I had carried it for years the way some men carry a pistol. Deed copy. Road permit. County-stamped access plat. Culvert inspection from 1991. Maintenance receipts going back 2 decades. My father's handwriting still sat on some of the margins, blocky and stubborn. Denise watched me lay the documents across the tailgate. The morning breeze lifted one corner of the plat, and I pinned it down with my coffee thermos. "Here," I said, tapping the road line with one finger. "Mercer Private Access. Recorded September 3rd, 1991. Parcel boundary stops here. Sagebrush Pines starts over there. Your HOA did not exist for another 28 years. Denise leaned close enough to pretend she was reading. She wasn't. Her sunglasses hid her eyes, but her face gave her away. She did not come here looking for information. She came here to perform certainty. "These documents are outdated," she said. The sentence hit me harder than the invoice. Outdated? Community needs evolve, she said. Modern standards require safe, paved access. Dust control, drainage, emergency response, property values. You can't cling to old gravel just because your family always did things one way. My hand flattened on the plat. That road had carried hay trucks in blizzards, brush rigs during the canyon fire, and the ambulance that took my father out of this place for the last time. She called it old gravel like she was talking about trash. You paved private land without permission, I said. That's not modernization. That's trespass. Her smile came back, thinner now. The board disagrees. The board, like 5 people in a clubhouse, could move a boundary line by raising their hands. She stepped back toward her SUV. You'll receive formal notice by email. The invoice is due in 10 days. I'm not paying it. Then the late fee schedule begins. I'm not in your HOA. You benefit from the community. I own the road. She opened her driver's door and paused, making sure the neighbors could still hear her. Mr. Mercer, nobody likes a difficult neighbor, especially one who takes advantage of everyone else's investment. Then she got in and drove off slowly over my asphalt like she was proving a point. I stood there until her taillights disappeared around the bend. For the next hour, I photographed everything. The signs, the speed bumps, the painted arrows, the tire marks in the shoulder, the invoice, the cut fence wire where they had moved one of my old posts. I took wide shots, close shots, timestamps, angles from the county road, and angles from inside my gate. By noon, Denise had fired the first public shot. Bob Patterson, who lived 2 lots inside Sagebrush Pines and still waved like a decent man, texted me a screenshot from the neighborhood Facebook page. The post was long, polished, and poisonous. Denise had written that Sagebrush Pines completed a necessary access improvement after years of dust complaints and safety concerns. She said one adjacent property owner was refusing to contribute despite substantial personal benefit. She said the HOA had acted responsibly to protect families, emergency vehicles, and neighborhood values. She did not mention my deed. She did not mention my permit. She did not mention she had paved my road while I was out of town. The comments were already stacking up. Rules are rules. Everybody should pay their share. That road always looked terrible anyway. Then one from Ruth Ellison, an older widow I barely knew except for seeing her mailbox flag raised every Monday. Does the HOA have recorded ownership of that road? 10 minutes later, her comment was gone. I stared at the screen, and the anger in me changed shape. Denise was not just covering my road with asphalt. She was covering the truth with noise. If she could get the neighborhood to believe the road was theirs before I proved it wasn't, she could turn my own property into a public argument. That night, I spread the documents across my kitchen table under the yellow light above the sink. Outside, the new asphalt shone dark through the window. It looked clean, expensive, wrong. I read every line again, slower this time. The paper said what it had always said. My father built it. My family maintained it. The county recorded it. Sagebrush Pines had no claim. So why did Denise look so sure? At 6:12 the next morning, I got my answer. I stepped outside with a mug of coffee and found a bright orange sticker slapped across the windshield of my pickup. Unauthorized vehicle parked on HOA property. Fine. $300. I stood in the quiet, staring at that sticker while the new road gleamed behind it. Denise had stopped pretending this was a misunderstanding. The orange sticker covered the driver's side of my windshield, pressed flat against the glass like a warning from a government office. But the seal at the top was not county, not state, not anything with legal weight. It was the Sagebrush Pines HOA logo, 2 pine trees and a mountain peak, printed in dark green ink. Unauthorized vehicle parked on HOA property. Fine. $300. Under that, in smaller type, further violations may result in removal at owner's expense. My pickup was parked beside my barn, inside my fence, 50 yards from the road my father built. I took 3 photographs before I touched anything. Wide shot with the barn behind it. Close shot of the sticker. One more showing my truck, the gate, the new asphalt, and the HOA sign in the same frame. Then I called the Adams County Sheriff's Office and asked for Sheriff Alan Briggs by name. Briggs arrived 26 minutes later in a dust-colored cruiser with no siren and no hurry. He was the kind of lawman who looked like he had seen too many neighbor disputes become lawsuits because one person confused volume with authority. He stepped out, adjusted his hat, and looked first at the sticker, then at the road. "Well," he said, "that's new. They paved it while I was in Montrose." His jaw tightened. "Without permission?" I handed him the folder. He did not skim it the way Denise had. He opened it on the hood of his cruiser and read the plat line by line. Road permit, private access designation, recorded parcel boundary, maintenance receipts, culvert certification. His finger stopped on the county stamp from 1991. Your father kept good records. He believed paper lasted longer than memory. Briggs looked toward the subdivision fence. Smart man. A gray pickup rolled up behind Denise's white SUV 10 minutes later. A man in a reflective vest got out carrying a plastic scraper and a tablet. Denise followed him, already talking before her boots hit the asphalt. "Sheriff Briggs, I'm glad you're here. This resident is interfering with association enforcement." Briggs did not answer right away. He pointed at my windshield. "Did you authorize that sticker?" Denise folded her arms. "The board did. Mr. Mercer's vehicle is parked adjacent to HOA managed access. It's parked on his ranch. It is connected to the access corridor under dispute." Briggs turned one page of the plat around so she could see it. "There's no dispute in this document. This road is marked private. His parcel, his access. I don't see any recorded easement for sagebrush pines." Denise's smile flickered, but she held it in place. "Our attorney is reviewing historical usage. Historical usage doesn't let you sticker a man's truck." The contractor in the vest shifted his weight. "Ma'am, you told me this was HOA property." "It is," Denise snapped. Briggs looked at him. "Remove the sticker." The man hesitated, eyes moving between Denise and the sheriff. Briggs's voice lowered half an inch. Now, the scraper made a dry, rasping sound against the glass. The sticker came off in strips, curling orange pieces falling against the gravel at my boots. Denise watched every piece peel away like it was an insult being carved into her. "You're making a mistake," she said. Briggs kept his eyes on the contractor. "And you're done touching vehicles on this property unless you want me writing a report that says otherwise." The contractor gathered the torn sticker pieces, muttered something about being misinformed, and got back in his pickup. He did not wait for Denise. That was the first power shift. Small, but real. Denise felt it too. Her face stayed smooth, but the skin around her mouth tightened. She turned to Briggs with that careful public voice people use when they know others are watching. "Sheriff, with respect, this is a civil matter. It became my matter when you put a removal warning on a private vehicle. The HOA has a duty to protect residents." "From what? A parked truck?" Her sunglasses hid her eyes, but not the anger rising beneath them. "Mr. Mercer has benefited from Sagebrush Pines improvements while refusing basic cooperation. The board will not allow one difficult landowner to compromise community safety." I stepped forward. Community safety didn't pour asphalt over my road at midnight. Denise looked at me then, and for the first time that morning, The polished act thinned enough for me to see the steel underneath. "You keep saying your road," she said. "It is my road. For now." Briggs heard it. So did I. The words hung over the fresh asphalt, sharper than the smell of tar. Sheriff Briggs closed my folder and handed it back to me. "Mrs. Whitcomb, unless you can produce a recorded deed, easement, or court order, you keep your signs, stickers, contractors, and enforcement notices off Mr. Mercer's property." Denise smiled again, but this time there was no warmth pretending to be neighborly. "The board will handle what the sheriff doesn't understand." Briggs's eyebrows lifted. "Careful." She ignored him, turned, and walked back to her SUV. Her tires rolled slowly over the new asphalt, past the sign that still said Sagebrush Pines Access, Residents Only, and disappeared behind the subdivision wall. For a moment, the road was quiet again. Briggs stood beside me, looking at the sign. "You got a lawyer?" "Not yet." "Get one." I looked at him. He nodded toward the road. "People don't spend thousands paving land they know they don't own unless they think they've got something to stand on." The torn orange sticker pieces sat in the dirt between us. I thought about Denise's words. For now. And I understood the sheriff was right. She was not backing down because she believed something hidden gave her power. I called Marla Gaines before Briggs's cruiser dust had settled. Her office sat above a feed store in Delta, but her name carried farther than the mountains. Property disputes, bad easements, HOA boards that thought letterhead was law. She had made a career out of dragging fake authority into real courtrooms. She listened without interrupting while I explained the asphalt, the signs, the invoice, the sticker, and Denise's last words. When I finished, Marla asked one question. "Did you remove anything?" "No." "Good. Don't." Her voice was sharp, not loud. "Do not pull the signs, do not grind the speed bumps, do not block the road yet. Photograph everything. Save every post. Print every email. People like Denise don't lose because you get angry. They lose because you let them keep writing." By noon, I was in her office with the brown folder on my lap and the invoice in a plastic sleeve. Marla spread the documents across her conference table, reading fast but carefully. She stopped at the 1991 access plat, then again at the maintenance receipts. "This is clean," she said. "That's what I thought." It is, which means she's either reckless or she has a document she thinks changes the picture. I thought of Denise's smile. She said the board would handle what the sheriff didn't understand. Marla leaned back. Then we find out what she showed the board. The answer came faster than expected. At 3:40 that afternoon, Ruth Ellison pulled into my driveway in an old blue Subaru with one missing hubcap and a rosary hanging from the mirror. I knew her by sight. Widow. Lived 2 streets inside Sagebrush Pines. Always wore a denim jacket even in summer. She stepped out holding a folded paper in both hands. "Mr. Mercer," she said, voice tight. "I don't want trouble. Seems trouble already found the road." That almost made her smile. "Almost." She handed me the paper. "Denise told us you agreed." The words turned the air hard. I unfolded the notice. Emergency Road Improvement Assessment. $1,650 per household. Purpose, paving and safety upgrades to Sagebrush Pines. Access road. Approved by board vote. Adjacent landowner participation confirmed. Adjacent landowner. Me. I read it twice, then looked up at Ruth. "When did you get this?" 3 weeks ago. She said the old dirt road was finally being brought under HOA standards. Said you were difficult at first, but you came around. I never spoke to her about paving. Ruth's hands twisted together. Some of us asked if the HOA owned it. Denise showed a map. What map? She opened her purse and pulled out a phone. The screenshot was blurry, taken from the back of a clubhouse room. But it was enough. A projected map of sagebrush pines with a red line drawn over my road. The title across the top read, Community Access Overlay. Marla arrived an hour later with Hank Calder in the passenger seat of her truck. Hank was 72, bow-legged, and built like a fence post. He had surveyed half the county before his knees gave out, and he remembered land the way other men remember songs. He stood in the road, stared at the asphalt, then looked toward the subdivision fence. They paved Mercer's line, he said. You know it? Marla asked. I staked it. He said it so flat, Denise might as well have left a signed confession. We took Ruth's screenshot inside and connected her phone to my kitchen monitor. Hank pulled a pair of reading glasses from his shirt pocket and leaned close. His finger touched the screen. There, he said. That's cropped. Marla's eyes narrowed. Cropped how? He went to my table, opened the county plat, and laid it beside the screenshot. The original map showed my parcel number printed clearly alongside the road. The HOA boundary stopped short, clean as a knife cut. But on Denise's version, the right edge of the map was trimmed just enough to remove my parcel number and the private access notation. The red line on her map made it look like the road belonged to sagebrush pines. It did not. Hank tapped the missing section with one thick finger. She didn't misunderstand the map. She cut out the part that proved her wrong. Ruth made a small sound behind me, like someone had pushed air out of her chest. She charged us because of that, she whispered. 30 households, maybe more. Marla wrote one number on her legal pad. $1,650 times 30. Then she circled it. This is no longer just trespass, she said. She represented your private road as HOA-controlled property, collected money on that claim, paved it, signed your name into consent language, and started enforcement when you objected. I looked out the kitchen window. The new asphalt lay black between the fence lines. Clean, smooth, expensive. Every inch of it looked more like evidence now. Ruth wiped her eyes with the heel of her hand. She told us you were being selfish. No, I said. She sold you something she didn't own. Marla closed the folder. That's the case, she said. Now we let her say it in front of witnesses. As if Denise heard her, my phone buzzed. A new email from Sagebrush Pines HOA. Emergency membership meeting. Tomorrow, 7 p.m. Topic: Mercer Road, obstruction and community access protection. Marla read it over my shoulder. Then she smiled. Good, she said. She just invited us. The Sagebrush Pines clubhouse sat at the end of a cul-de-sac, dressed up to look rustic. Stone veneer on the front, fake wagon wheels by the doors, a polished sign that said, Community First, in carved letters no one had lived by in years. At 6:52 that evening, the parking lot was already full. I parked my truck near the back, with Marla Gaines in the passenger seat, and Hank Calder following behind in his dented county gray pickup. Ruth Ellison waited by the entrance, arms folded tight across her denim jacket, looking like she wanted to run and testify at the same time. You don't have to do this, I told her. She looked through the glass doors at the crowded room. She charged me money for a lie. Yes, I do. Inside, the air smelled of burnt coffee, wet coats, and nervous people pretending not to stare. Folding chairs faced a long table where Denise Whitcomb stood in a navy blazer, her clipboard open, her white SUV keys placed beside it like a trophy. 3 board members sat with her. None of them looked comfortable. Denise saw me and smiled for the room. Mr. Mercer? She said into a small microphone. Thank you for attending. We appreciate your willingness to discuss your obstruction of community safety. Marla touched my elbow once. A warning. Let her talk. So I did. Denise clicked a remote, and the fake map appeared on the screen behind her. The same cropped map Ruth had shown us, only cleaner now. Red line over my road. No parcel number. No private access notation. No truth. This access corridor, Denise said, turning to the room, has served Sagebrush Pines families for years. Delivery trucks, residents, emergency vehicles, maintenance crews. The board acted to improve safety and reduce dust. A man in the second row nodded. Someone else muttered, "About time." Denise lifted a hand toward me like she was presenting evidence against a trespasser. Unfortunately, Mr. Mercer has chosen to challenge a project that benefits every household here. I stood slowly. A few phones lifted. Marla stood with me, carrying only one folder. "Mrs. Whitcomb," she said, calm enough to make the room quieter. "I'm Marla Gaines, counsel for Mr. Mercer. Can you show the recorded document giving Sagebrush Pines HOA rights to his road?" Denise blinked once. "This meeting is not a legal hearing." "No," Marla said. "It's a room full of people you charged $1,650 each. I think they deserve to see what they paid for." The board member on Denise's left, a thin man with silver hair, looked down at his papers. Denise adjusted the microphone. "The HOA has historical usage rights. Recorded where? The road has functioned as shared infrastructure. Recorded where?" A woman in the back whispered, "Answer her." Denise's face tightened. "Counselor, you're oversimplifying a complex community issue." Marla opened her folder and removed one page. The original 1991 county plat. She did not wave it, did not dramatize it. She simply laid it on the table facing the board. Hank walked up beside her and placed a larger survey map next to it. "I staked that road," he said. His voice was rough, old, and impossible to dress up. "County recorded it as Mercer private access. Sagebrush Pines boundary stops 40 feet short. Always has." The room shifted. Not loudly. Worse than loudly. Chairs creaked, shoes moved, people leaned forward. Denise kept her smile, but the color had begun to drain from under her makeup. "Mr. Calder, with respect, land use evolves. Boundary lines don't evolve because a board wants them to." That one landed. Ruth stood from the back row, holding her assessment notice in one shaking hand. "Denise, you told us Caleb agreed." Denise turned sharply. "Ruth, this is not the time. You charged me $1,650, Ruth said, voice breaking but growing stronger. "You said Mr. Mercer was participating. Did he agree or not?" Denise's eyes cut to me. I said nothing. That silence moved through the room like cold water. A board member pushed back from the table. "Denise, you told us the adjacent owner had consented. I said participation was anticipated." "No," Ruth said. "You said confirmed." Marla picked up the assessment notice and read the line out loud. "Adjacent landowner participation confirmed." Nobody spoke for 3 full seconds. Then Denise made the mistake. She gripped the edge of the table and leaned toward the microphone. "If the road benefits the HOA," she said, each word tight and bright with anger, "then the HOA has the right to control it." The room went still. Marla slowly wrote the sentence on her legal pad. Then she leaned close to me, low enough that only I heard her. That was the sentence we needed. Denise realized too late that she had stopped sounding like a president and started sounding like someone admitting motive. The silver-haired board member stood up. "I want this meeting paused until we consult independent counsel." Denise snapped. "Sit down, Carl." He did not sit. Ruth stepped into the aisle. "I want my money back." Another voice followed. "So do I." Then another. "Did we pave a private road?" The room began turning on itself, neighbor against board, board against Denise, Denise against the facts she had trimmed off a map and hoped nobody would find. I looked at the fake red line still glowing on the screen. For 2 days, that line had made me look like a difficult man standing in the way of a community. Now everyone could see what it really was. A lie drawn over my father's road. The meeting did not end so much as break apart. People stood in clusters under the clubhouse lights, holding assessment notices, whispering numbers, looking at Denise like they were seeing the woman behind the clipboard for the first time. She tried to regain control twice. Both times, someone asked about the money. Marla did not raise her voice. She collected Ruth's notice, photographed the screen with the fake map still glowing behind Denise, and asked the board secretary for the official meeting minutes. When Denise refused, Marla smiled and said, "Then I'll request them properly." That was all. No shouting, no threats, just the kind of calm that makes guilty people hear footsteps. By 8:30 the next morning, Marla's process server had mailed and posted 30 certified notices. Each one carried my name, my parcel number, and the same plain sentence at the center. Non-emergency private vehicle access across Mercer Ranch Road is revoked effective 72 hours from receipt. Emergency services remained authorized. Medical transport remained authorized. Mail carriers remained authorized. Nobody was being trapped. Nobody was being endangered. But private cars, delivery vans, landscapers, HOA contractors, moving trucks, golf carts, and convenience traffic were done using my land as their shortcut. I signed every notice at my kitchen table while the black asphalt sat outside the window like a dare. Marla slid the last stack into a folder. "This is the clean way. It feels too quiet. That's why it works." By noon, the road was louder than it had been all week. Cars slowed at the new signs. Drivers leaned forward over steering wheels, reading notices taped to temporary posts Hank had set at the road edge. Some looked confused. Some looked angry. A few looked ashamed. Ruth called just after lunch. "They're panicking," she said. "Denise told everyone you're trying to trap us. I'm not. I know that now." Her voice dropped. "Some of them don't." I stood on the porch and watched a silver minivan roll over the new asphalt toward the back loop of sagebrush pines. The driver slowed near the first notice, stared, then kept going. Habit is a hard thing to break when somebody else has been lying to you for years. That evening, Denise sent an email to all the residents. Subject: hostile road closure threat. She wrote that I was retaliating against families, jeopardizing access, and attempting to destabilize the community. She called the notices invalid. She called the road stowawt, historically shared. She called Marla's letter an intimidation tactic. Then she made her second mistake. She instructed residents to continue using the road until the HOA completed legal countermeasures. Marla read the email on my phone and nodded once. "Good. You keep saying that when she does something worse, because she keeps putting it in writing." For the next 2 days, the neighborhood went quiet in a way that did not feel peaceful. No kids cut across the road on bikes. No delivery trucks came through. The back loop residents drove slower, watching my fence line like it had become a courtroom rail. I spent those hours doing exactly what Marla told me. I installed 2 trail cameras facing the road. I photographed every passing vehicle after notice. I logged times, plates, and direction of travel. Hank came by with survey stakes and marked the true boundary in orange flags from the county highway to my gate. Each flag stood just outside the asphalt Denise had paid for with other people's money. By the second evening, those flags had done more than any argument. They showed the road for what it was. A straight black strip laid entirely inside Mercerland. At 5:40 p.m., a dark pickup stopped at the entrance. Bob Patterson got out, removed his hat, and walked to my porch. "I owe you an apology," he said. "For what?" "For believing her." He looked toward the road. "She told us you demanded the HOA pave it, said you wanted the value without paying the cost." I said nothing. He swallowed. "My wife drives that road to work every morning. I'm not asking you to change anything. I just want you to know some of us are starting to understand who caused this." That mattered more than I expected. At 6:15 the next morning, the third day, I woke to headlights at my gate. A young man in a black security jacket sat in a folding chair beside the first HOA sign. A flashlight lay across his lap. A printed sheet was taped to the chair back. By order of Sagebrush Pines. HOA. Access must remain open pending review. Denise's white SUV idled 20 yards behind him. She had sent a guard to block my own gate before the 72 hours ran out. He couldn't have been more than 24. Black jacket. Cheap badge patch. Folding chair planted beside the HOA sign like that made it official. His boots were clean, his eyes were tired, and the flashlight across his knees trembled just enough to tell me he already knew this job was bad. I rolled my truck forward until my bumper stopped 10 feet from him. He stood too fast. "Sir, you need to turn around," he said. "This access must remain open pending HOA review. My gate is behind you. I was instructed not to allow interference." "Interference with what?" He glanced back at Denise's SUV. Her headlights stayed on. She did not get out yet. She wanted him to be the first mistake. The guard swallowed. Community access. I shut off the engine and stepped out with the same brown folder under my arm. The road was cold now, the asphalt no longer smelling fresh, just wrong. Orange survey flags snapped along both shoulders, marking the truth Denise kept trying to bury. "What's your name?" I asked. "Evan." "Evan, who hired you?" "Sagebrush Pines HOA. To stand where?" He pointed to the printed order taped to the chair. "At the access gate." I looked at the paper. It had Denise's signature, the HOA logo, and 3 paragraphs of legal-sounding fog. No parcel number, no court order, no sheriff's signature, no recorded right. "Evan," I said, handing him the deed copy, "you are standing on Mercer Ranch." He stared at the first page without understanding it. I opened the survey and pointed to the line. "This is the county highway. This is my road. This is my gate. Sagebrush Pines starts over there, behind that fence. Whoever told you this was HOA property lied to you." Denise finally stepped out of her SUV. "Do not engage him," she called. "He is attempting to intimidate contracted security." The guard flinched at the word security, like it reminded him of who was paying. I did not look at her. I kept my eyes on him. "If you block my gate after being shown this," I said, "you're not enforcing anything. You're trespassing." Denise marched closer, clipboard in hand, sunglasses on though the sun had barely cleared the ridge. "This is harassment. Evan, stay exactly where you are." Evan looked from her to me, then down at the survey again. That was when Sheriff Alan Briggs arrived. His cruiser rolled up slow, tires whispering over the asphalt. Denise had never had the right to pour. He stepped out, took in the folding chair, the printed order, Denise's posture, and me holding the same folder he had already read. "Morning," Briggs said. "Anybody want to explain why I got a call about a private security blockade?" Denise answered first. Of course she did. "Sheriff, The HOA has retained security to preserve access while this matter is under review. Briggs looked at Evan. Son, did she tell you this road was HOA property? Evan hesitated. Denise cut in. He was acting under board instruction. Briggs did not move his eyes from the guard. Evan's shoulders dropped. Yes, sir. I was told it was HOA-controlled access. It isn't, Briggs said. You've been shown the deed? Yes, sir. Then you need to move your chair, your sign, and yourself off Mr. Mercer's property. Denise's voice sharpened. You don't have authority to interpret civil access rights. I have authority to stop someone from blocking a landowner's gate without a court order. She lifted the printed sheet. This is a board order. Briggs looked at it for half a second. That's not a court order. The sentence landed clean. Evan picked up the folding chair before Denise could speak again. He moved it to the far shoulder, then stopped. Farther, Briggs said. The young man carried it across the boundary flags and set it on the subdivision side of the fence line. He unpinned the printed order from the chair and handed it back to Denise. I'm not getting cited over this, he said quietly. Denise stared at him like he had betrayed a nation. You work for us. I work for the company, Evan said, and they didn't send me out here to stand on private land. He walked to his sedan, pulled off the black jacket, tossed it into the passenger seat, and drove away without looking back. For a moment, nobody spoke. The folding chair sat beyond the orange flags, small and useless. The HOA sign still stood beside my road, but it looked different now, less like authority, more like evidence. Briggs turned to Denise. I'm going to say this plainly. Do not send another contractor, guard, board member, or resident to interfere with Mr. Mercer's gate. Her smile came back, but it had cracks in it. You're choosing sides. No, ma'am. I'm reading the boundary. Denise's phone buzzed in her hand. She looked at it, then at me, and something colder replaced her anger. You wanted public attention, Mr. Mercer? She said. You're about to get it. She got back into her SUV and left, slower than before. That night, her post went up. Caleb Mercer, unstable rancher, threatens to cut off families from safe access. Sagebrush Pines will not be bullied. 10 minutes later, my phone rang. A woman introduced herself as Lauren Pike from Channel 7 Western Slope News. Mr. Mercer, she said, I'm calling about a road dispute involving Sagebrush Pines. Mrs. Whitcomb says residents may be trapped by your actions. I looked out at the quiet black road, the orange flags, the empty place where the guard's chair had been. Denise had tried signs, stickers, fake maps, security. Now she wanted the story. But this time she had handed me the audience. I did not answer Lauren Pike right away. I told her my attorney would send documents within the hour. Then I called Marla. She was already awake. I could hear paper moving on her end of the line. She went to the press? Marla asked. She called me unstable. Good. Defamation with a microphone has a longer shelf life. By 9 a.m., Marla had sent Lauren a clean packet. Not accusations, not feelings, documents, the 1991 county plat, the private access permit, Denise's $9,800 invoice, the $1,650 assessment notice Ruth gave me, the cropped HOA map, Sheriff Briggs's incident report from the sticker removal, a screenshot of Denise's post calling me a threat, and one typed page with Denise's clubhouse quote in bold. If the road benefits the HOA, then the HOA has the right to control it. Marla's email ended with one sentence. Mr. Mercer has preserved emergency, medical, and mail access. No resident is trapped. At 11:15, Lauren called back. Mr. Mercer. Mrs. Whitcomb did not mention the emergency access exception. No, I said. I didn't expect her to. Would you be willing to speak on camera? I looked through the window at the road. A delivery van slowed near the survey flags, then turned around without crossing. For the first time since I came home, the asphalt looked less like theft and more like a line waiting to be enforced. "I'll speak," I said, "but you should talk to Ruth Ellison first." Ruth agreed before I finished asking. By afternoon, Lauren's news van sat outside Ruth's house. I watched from a distance, not wanting my shadow over her words. Ruth stood on her porch holding the same assessment notice, her hands steady now. Denise had spent years making people feel alone with their fines. Ruth's voice changed that. "She told us Mr. Mercer agreed," Ruth said into the camera. "She took money from us based on that." When I asked about recorded ownership, my comment disappeared. Two more neighbors stepped forward after Ruth. Bob Patterson said Denise had threatened him with a lien over a storage shed color that did not appear anywhere in the covenants. Janet Mills, a retired appraiser, said property values had not risen because of Denise's standards. They had stalled because buyers were scared of HOA enforcement records. Every statement widened the crack. By 4:30, the story was no longer Caleb Mercer Block's neighborhood road. It was HOA president accused of paving private ranch road with resident money. Denise tried to recover immediately. She posted a video from the clubhouse steps, hair perfect, voice trembling with controlled outrage. "Certain individuals are spreading misinformation designed to divide this community," she said. "As president, my only goal has been safety, access, and property values." Then Lauren asked one question from behind the camera. "Do you have a recorded easement for Mercer Ranch Road?" Denise froze. Not long. Not enough for people who weren't watching closely. But I was watching closely. She said, "Our council is reviewing all historical rights." Lauren followed. "So at this moment, can you show one?" Denise ended the interview. That clip went online before sunset. The comments changed faster than the wind over open pasture. "Where is the easement? Why were we charged? Did Denise crop that map?" Ruth was right. Carl, the silver-haired board member from the meeting, emailed every resident at 7:08 p.m. He copied me by mistake or courage. I never knew which. Effective immediately, I am requesting an independent audit of the road improvement assessment and all documents used to authorize it. 20 minutes later, Denise replied to all. "This is not the time for panic." That was the wrong thing to say to people who had just learned panic might have been the only honest reaction left. At 8:30, Bob Patterson came by my porch again. He did not bring beer this time. He brought a folder. "7 households are willing to sign statements," he said. "More by morning." I took the folder. "Why now?" He looked toward the subdivision lights beyond the fence. "Because she told us you were the bully. Then we saw the map." The words landed quietly, but they carried weight. Denise had owned the story when all she had to fight was my silence. Now the silence was gone, and every document she created had begun speaking against her. At 5:40 the next morning, I walked the length of my father's road with a thermos in one hand and the gate chain in the other. The asphalt was cold under my boots. Orange flags marked the boundary. Cameras watched from fence posts. The 72 hours expired at 6. At dawn on Monday, I closed the Iron Ranch gate. The chain sounded louder than it should have. Steel through steel. One loop, then another. I set the padlock through the links, turned the key, and felt the click travel up my wrist. Behind me, the road ran black and empty toward the county highway. In front of me, 30 homes on the back loop of sagebrush pines were about to learn the difference between convenience and ownership. At 6:04, the first car came around the bend. A gray sedan, headlights on, coffee cup balanced in the driver's hand. It slowed 20 yards from the gate, stopped, then rolled forward like maybe the metal bars would change their mind. The driver lowered his window. Caleb, he called. I've got work. I know. Come on, man. Just open it today. We'll figure it out later. We had 72 hours to figure it out. He looked past me at the locked chain, then at the county road beyond. The detour is 40 minutes. Then you should talk to Denise. By 6:25, there were 8 cars waiting. By 6:40, there were 17. Engines idled. Brake lights glowed red in the thin morning light. People stepped out in work shirts, uniforms, nursing scrubs, construction jackets. Most were angry. Some were scared. A few looked at the orange boundary flags and said nothing at all. Sheriff Alan Briggs pulled up on the county side at 6:45. Marla Gaines arrived 2 minutes later, carrying a leather folder and looking like she had slept just fine. Hank Calder came last, parked his old truck by the fence, and leaned on a survey rod without saying a word. That was when Denise arrived. Her white SUV came fast down the subdivision side, forcing 2 waiting cars to edge onto the shoulder. She stepped out wearing dark glasses, a red coat, and the same clipboard she had carried since the first morning. In her hand was another orange notice. "You need to open this gate immediately," she snapped. I took one sip from the thermos. "No." She marched close enough for Sheriff Briggs to step between us. "Mr. Mercer is unlawfully obstructing community access," she said, holding the notice toward him. "This is an emergency enforcement order." Briggs looked at the paper without taking it. "Court signed it? The board authorized it. Then it's not an emergency order. It's another HOA paper." A murmur moved through the line of cars. Denise heard it and turned on the crowd. "Do not let him intimidate you. This road has served Sagebrush Pines for years." Marla stepped forward. "With permission that was never granted, on land the HOA never owned, after an assessment based on a false map." Denise's voice rose. "That is your opinion." "No," Hank said. Everyone turned. The old surveyor lifted the rod and pointed at the orange flags. "That's the line. I staked it in 1991. The county recorded it. The asphalt is inside Mercer land from highway to gate." Denise's face hardened. "You're not a court." "No," Hank said. "I'm the man who measured it. That shut the road down harder than the gate." At 7:05, a work truck pulled up on the county side. The logo on the door read Mesa Ridge Paving. A heavy-set man got out holding a clipboard, and Denise's head snapped toward him like she already knew this was bad. Marla smiled for the first time that morning. "Mr. Dalton," she said, "thank you for coming." The man walked to the gate, avoiding Denise's eyes. "I'm Russell Dalton," he said, "owner of Mesa Ridge Paving." Denise cut in fast. "Russell, this is not the place." "Yes, it is," Marla said. She opened her folder and removed a copy of the work order. "Mr. Dalton, who signed authorization for the road paving?" Russell rubbed a hand over his jaw. "Denise Whitcomb." "As what?" "HOA president." "And what did she represent to your company?" He looked at the gate, the waiting cars, the sheriff, then finally at me. She represented that Sagebrush Pines had legal control of the access road and authority to improve it. The words landed like a hammer. A woman in scrubs near the front of the line said, "Denise, is that true?" Denise pointed at Marla. "This is a setup." Russell shook his head. "We asked for proof of authority." She provided a board authorization and the map. "The cropped map?" Marla asked. He nodded once. The road went silent, except for idling engines. Now it was not just my word. Not just Ruth. Not just Hank. The paving company had confirmed the thing Denise had tried to bury under asphalt. She had signed the work order claiming control of land that was not hers. Marla turned to Denise and handed her a packet. "Denise Whitcomb, you are being served notice of civil action for trespass, conversion, fraudulent representation, unauthorized construction on private property, and damages related to the Mercer Ranch Road project. Denise did not take it. Marla placed it on the hood of her white SUV. The crowd watched. For the first time since this started, Denise had no clipboard answer, no fake order, no polished sentence, just 30 cars behind a locked gate, a sheriff reading the boundary, a surveyor holding the line, and the truth sitting on her hood in a manila packet. I looked at the black road my father built, the road she paved, renamed, and sold to people who trusted her. Then I looked at the drivers waiting behind her. Emergency vehicles still pass, I said. Medical transport still passes. Mail still passes. But private access is done until a court says otherwise. No one cheered. That was not the sound of victory yet. It was the heavier sound of people realizing exactly who had caused their mourning. Denise looked around at the neighbors she had lied to, and for one brief second, the woman with the clipboard looked smaller than the road she tried to steal. The board ordered the audit that afternoon. Not because they suddenly found courage, but because 30 angry households had spent all morning taking the long county detour around the ridge, and every extra mile pointed back to Denise. By noon, Carl had resigned as treasurer, unless the books were opened. By 3, Ruth Ellison had delivered 14 signed statements to Marla's office. By 5, Denise's name was no longer on the Sagebrush Pines website. She called it a temporary leave. Nobody called it that twice. The audit found the road assessment first. 30 households charged $1,650 each. Emergency Improvement Fund. No recorded easement. No owner consent. No independent legal review. Then came the paving invoice, the cropped map, the meeting minutes Denise had edited before sending them to the board. Marla called me 2 weeks later. "You sitting down?" "I'm standing in the shop." "Stand softer. The paving company's insurer is coming to the table. The HOA board is admitting unauthorized construction." Denise signed personally on the work order. I looked through the open shop door at the black road beyond the pasture fence. And my road? Still yours. 3 words, clean as a county stamp. The court hearing came in November, after the first hard frost silvered the fence wire. Denise sat at the respondent table in a gray suit instead of her cream jacket, no clipboard in sight. Marla laid out the case with the same calm she had used from the beginning. The 1991 plat, the road permit, Hank's survey, Ruth's assessment notice, Lauren Pike's interview footage, Sheriff Briggs's report, and Russell Dalton's signed statement from Mesa Ridge Paving. Denise's attorney tried to argue community reliance. The judge asked one question: where is the recorded document granting this HOA access rights? Nobody answered. That silence did more than any speech. The order came down clear. Mercer Ranch Road was private property. Sagebrush Pines had no ownership, no easement, and no authority to assess residents for improvements on land it did not control. The HOA owed damages for trespass and unauthorized construction. Denise was barred from holding any board office or financial authority in Sagebrush Pines for 5 years. Partial refunds went out before Christmas. Not enough to fix all the trust she broke, but enough for Ruth Ellison to bring me a pie one cold afternoon and set it on my porch rail like a peace offering. "I should have asked more questions," she said. "You were lied to. I still paid. You weren't the thief, Ruth. You were the mark." Her eyes watered, but she smiled at that. "That sounds like something your father would have said." Maybe it was. In January, I took the speed bumps out. Hank came over with a thermos and watched from the fence while the contractor unbolted the yellow humps Denise had installed like stitches across my father's road. The HOA signs came down next. Sagebrush Pines access, residents only. I stacked them in the bed of my pickup and drove them to the board office myself. Carl met me outside. "Those belong to you?" I asked. He looked at the signs, then shook his head. No, they never did. I left them leaning against the wall anyway. By spring, the new board had negotiated a written limited-use agreement with Marla. Not free, not assumed, not controlled by the HOA. A narrow, revocable permission for certain residents to use the road during winter emergencies and medical needs, with maintenance payments made directly into a monitored account. Every line was recorded, every signature notarized, every boundary named correctly. That was the difference. Permission was not theft when it was asked for. I kept the asphalt. People thought I would tear it up out of pride, but pride had nothing to do with it. The road was smooth now. My hay trucks rode easier. Fire crews could reach the ridge faster. My father would have hated the way it happened and approved of the practical result. I removed Denise's arrows and painted no new ones. At the entrance, I set one plain metal sign on 2 cedar posts. Mercer Ranch Road. Permission required. No threat. No decoration. Just truth. Sometimes in the evening, I walk that road from the county highway to the gate. Dust still clings to the fence posts where the old gravel shoulders show through. Cattle move low along the pasture, and the irrigation ditch carries its narrow sound toward the cottonwoods. The road has changed. So am I. For years, I thought keeping peace meant staying quiet while people tested the edges of what belonged to me. Denise taught me something different. Peace without a boundary is just an invitation to the next bully with a clipboard. She thought asphalt could cover ownership, but some lines are deeper than pavement.
My father drew this one in 1991, and by Monday morning, every car in Cypress Pine knew exactly where Caleb Mercer land began. The lesson here isn't that every disagreement had to become the fight. It's that when something matters, your word needs a record behind it. Caleb did not win the day by yelling louder than Denise. He kept the deed, he kept the survey, he kept the permits, the receipt, the photos, the notice, and the juice. That is what happened when the story got twisted, when neighbors were confused, and when the private road was treated like it belonged to somebody else. There is dignity in staying calm when people expect you to wreck. There is strength in knowing what is yours without needing to make a show of it. And there is a kind of justice that does not come from anger, but from patience, paper, and standing in the right place when the facts finally catch up. If this story reminded you of something you've seen with an HOA, a neighbor dispute, or plan that your family worked hard to skip, type yes in the comments or tell us what state you're watching from. I read those stories, and I know a lot of folks out there have been through more than they ever talk about. And if you enjoy stories about ranger, landowner, and everyday people standing their ground with dignity and the law on their side, subscribe and stay with us. There's another story coming.